Faubourg Sainte-Marie was expanding rapidly throughout the 1830s, bringing a large American and German population looking for entertainment they could call their own. The opening of James Caldwell's St. Charles Theatre ushered in a new era of theatrical excellence that even attracted the reticent Creoles to cross Canal Street. But the drama on stage was spilling out into the streets. In 1833, just before Caldwell's short retirement from theater to open the first gasworks in the city, he had leased out the American Theater on Camp Street to a pair of new managers, his former treasurer, Richard Russell, and Russell's business partner, James Simon Rowe. Caldwell had leased the American Theater as well as his theaters in Louisville and Nashville to the men for 5 years. They enjoyed great success in running the Camp Theater, creating a strong stock company and attracting several stars, much as Caldwell had done years earlier. It was their success that some believed was the real reason Caldwell decided to return. When Caldwell announced the opening of the St. Charles Theater, it became clear that the Camp and the St. Charles would be in competition. What had been a friendly business arrangement with Russell and Rowe was now strained. Caldwell was known for his grandstanding and usage of the press. One journal, called the True American, was known in New Orleans as a platform for Caldwell's views on theater, politics, and industry. As was the tradition then, Richard Russell and James Rowe had set out in early summer of 1835 to manage their companies in Kentucky and Tennessee. The men were scheduled to return to New Orleans during the fall to open the season at the American Theater. But on October 2nd, 1835, while managing their troupe in Nashville, James Rowe took up a pistol and decided to end his life. It is believed that Rowe was consumed with grief following the death of his wife 4 months earlier. After the shooting, Rowe lingered on for another day, asking for Dick Russell to be summoned. A letter was sent to Russell, who was managing their troupe in Louisville. Because of the slowness of the mail, Russell didn't receive the news until October the 7th, 4 days after Rowe's demise. Richard Russell returned to New Orleans in full control of the Camp Theater, ready to fight against his former employer and current landlord, to whom he was paying $13,000 annual rent. That's $425,000 a year today. On November 30th, 1835, the St. Charles opened to great fanfare. In comparison to the American Theater, the St. Charles was a palace both in size and stature. The largest theater in the United States, it seated 4,000 patrons in gaslit neo-Renaissance splendor. Caldwell was set to return to his throne as the King of New Orleans Theater. But the steady stream of rumors and public contests between Russell and Caldwell led to both men being reprimanded in the local press. The entertainment dollar had become more precious, with a recession beginning to take hold. Russell's Camp Theater was very popular, and there was strong competition from Théâtre d'Orléans and a new circus, which spoke directly to the American desire for expansion. Caldwell, unfortunately, couldn't give the St. Charles his full attention. His time was taken up with his many investments in gasworks, railroads, arcades, and bathhouses. He was also developing a political presence in the city, serving as an alderman on the city council. To counter the opening of the impressive St. Charles, Richard Russell initiated a price war with Caldwell, discounting his ticket prices to lure audiences away from the St. Charles. Caldwell, however, had chosen to introduce a novel attraction not seen in the city. Alongside his regular Shakespearean tragedies, English operas, and farces, he decided to present Italian opera. French opera was the standard fare and the lifeblood of the world-famous Théâtre d'Orléans. German operas were also being performed by amateur companies in the new city, but Italian opera had never been performed in New Orleans. The first production was Bellini's Il Pirata in March of 1836. It was the first Italian opera performed in New Orleans and the opera's American debut. The first production was well received, but didn't inspire the demand Caldwell envisioned. The Italian opera experiment was set off to powder its wig for a season, but not without revealing a stunning diamond. Charlotte Saunders Cushman was still a young girl when she first came to the St. Charles Theater in 1835. The young singer was recommended to Caldwell by musical director Jules Mader, who was also the girl's voice instructor. Many historians comment on Cushman's robust contralto, which enlivened many of the male and female roles that she played later in her career. But, as historian John Kendall reports, several critics took umbrage at Cushman's singing voice in at least 3 roles. One said of her singing voice, "We would as soon hear a peacock attempt the carols of a nightingale as to listen to her squabbling caricature of singing." But Caldwell saw something in young Miss Cushman. He, along with company actor J.H. Barton, encouraged Charlotte to turn her talents from opera to drama, a suggestion she welcomed, having grown tired of Mader's singing lessons. Both men worked with her for the next few months. On the anniversary of Shakespeare's death, April the 23rd, 1836, Caldwell presented her at the St. Charles in Macbeth, playing Lady Macbeth opposite Barton. Her performance was a sensation, freely praised by the same critics that had dismissed her singing the previous year. Charlotte Cushman would go on from Caldwell to become the most famous and critically lauded American actress of the 19th century. Meanwhile, competition between Russell and Caldwell continued. Russell, having learned from his former employer's many social scrapes, cultivated a well-liked character as his public face. Caldwell was respected and enjoyed on stage, but could not be called well-liked. The animosity between the men led to a lengthy, vitriolic trial that ended with both men ordered to pay arrears to each other. The 1836-1837 season would be a turning point. Caldwell's Theatre in Cincinnati, hosting Russell's touring company, burned to the ground along with Russell's entire production. The theater was a total loss. The box office for the St. Charles also began to fail. Audiences and the press had grown tired of the men's constant bickering and were going back to the Théâtre d'Orléans. Despite this, in December, their mutual animosity broke out with both men littering the streets with long handbills detailing their accusations and calumny at tedious length. In a kind of play for public support, Caldwell announced his retirement from acting in February of 1837. His farewell performance was in a 5-act comedy with the optimistic title, Laugh When You Can. The size of the crowd at the St. Charles for the event reminded everyone of the admiration and respect New Orleanians had for James Caldwell, an admiration that wanted its limits inside the theater. Things then took a turn for the worst at the St. Charles. On May the 21st, the Havana Italian Opera Company, during the full performance of the opera Semiramis, ended their performance before the final act. Without explanation, the final scene of the opera Norma instead ended the performance. The Daily Picayune reported on the riot that broke out inside of the theater when the curtain came down early. Chairs were thrown around the theater, many of them at the spectacular crystal chandelier, the crowning glory of the theater, thankfully hung high above the theater's house. The ugly scandal soured public opinion against Caldwell and the St. Charles yet again. Theatergoers from the old city returned to the flourishing Théâtre d'Orléans, while those in the new city were divided into 2 factions. As one patron said, "You know, a great number who go to the camp won't go to the St. Charles, and vice versa." In March of 1838, convinced by his patrons that he should be independent of James Caldwell, Richard Russell purchased a plot on the southwest corner of Magazine and Delord, today's Howard Avenue, to become the Second American Theater. He was at the top of his game with a devoted audience, successful productions in the other theaters leased from Caldwell, and public support. He was in the peak of health when he laid the cornerstone on May the 7th. On May the 19th, without warning, he died. 12 days later, his 5-year leases on all of Caldwell's theaters expired. On the first day of June of 1838, James Caldwell was once again in control of the 2 biggest theaters in New Orleans. But old nemeses were coming for his theatrical empire, and new competitors were preparing to open their doors. Thank you for watching. Please like and share this video and follow us on all of your social media at NOLA Voice Theatre. Next time, an old associate returns to stake his claim, new theaters emerge in the Vieux Carré, and a life-changing event brings to a close a remarkable theatrical career. For NOLA Voice Theatre, I'm Vatican Loki.